Hello everybody, how you doing? You're welcome to the channel. Just hold on 1 second. Let me okay. Good. Hello everybody, once again you're welcome to the channel. So today quickly we'll jump into some transfer news around Nigerian players, Nigerian-eligible players. So first off, right off the bat, we will talk about Lesley Ugochukwu. So he's completed his move. At least we've got it here. We go from Fabrizio Romano that he's now completed his move to Burnley. So him, Amanda Broja off to Burnley. Let's see how it works for them. So what does it mean for Lesley Ugochukwu? At least he gets playing time. For me, from a Chelsea first perspective, I would have loved him to be at the club because I think he is a very good player. But from his own perspective, you have to look at it this way. One, Chelsea's midfield right now is crowded. You've got the likes of Esugo, Caicedo, Fernandez, Andre Santos, and of course Cole Palmer, although he plays in a different part of the midfield, Mars a 10. So it makes it very, very difficult for a player coming in to try to break your way through. So from a Lesley Ugochukwu, fair play, he goes to Burnley. And from a Nigerian perspective, what I'll say is maybe this opens up the door for him to, get game time and impress not just Didier Deschamps, the French coach, but Eric Chill, the head coach of Nigerian Super Eagles. And I think, chat. So nice copy. Ugo. Well, that the truth, we've got to let him go. You can't have everyone in your team. He must play, or he must go somewhere that he can play. There's no need having him on Chelsea's books and in a wage he's not playing. The club is paying his wages, and no one's it's not really progressing. And when you look at the players ahead of him, you know, um, you don't have any player who's like 30, 31, and you're saying, okay, I can work my way. By the time I'm set, he's old and phased out of the team. Everyone there is 22, 23, 20, 19 in that midfield area. So I see why he's got to go. Yeah, he's got to go. In my opinion, fair play to him, and I hope he can impress. And I hope every child is watching the player because, from a Super Eagles perspective, I must speak about the Super Eagles because the sort of football Eric Chill wants to play, you need someone that can be deep lying, hold the ball, pop the ball about. So for me, Ebenezer Kinsimiro is one that stands out, that fits that profile. And then Lesley Ugochukwu is another one. So keep an eye on him, Nigerian football fans. And then for Burnley, I think they're getting a very, very good midfielder. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the next 17, 18 months to 2 years, he ends up, moving up to a higher place Premier League club for maybe 50, 60 million, or at least 45 million, because I think he's that good. He has that much potential. So let's see how that all shakes down. And then, of course, I also want to talk about Tyreek Judge possibly leaving Chelsea to go to RB Leipzig. So I get why he would like to go to RB Leipzig because you need game time. Now, a lot of Chelsea fans have been doing what fans like to do, which is get out of the club. You have no fight in you. He doesn't want to fight. For me, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't give any nuance to the argument. First off, you have Bino Gittins. If Bino Gittins was the out and out, the only guy, then you say, okay, you have one player that you want to fight with. You have one player you want to compete for that spot with. But when you don't have, but when you have two players in Garnacho right now, and then immediately you fall down the pecking order to becoming the third person in that position, how do you fight? And one point I have been making, and I will keep making, is with respect to Nicholas Jackson. I've said it before, and on another channel as well, I've said it as well, that Nico Jackson can be another left wing option. And so if he becomes another left wing option, that means Tyreek George drops further down the pecking order. And so Tyreek George is open to a move. So either Frankfurt, I think Frankfurt, one of the clubs, Borussia Mönchengladbach is another club, RB Leipzig is another club as well that are leading, that are sort of interested in his signature. And I think part of the discussion between Chelsea and RB Leipzig has rather involved the sale or the transfer of Tyreek George to Leipzig. Now, the reports, at least the words out of Chelsea, is that they like the player, they value him. They want to see him at the club, but also recognize the fact that he needs game time. Now, fair play. If he needs game time and you value him, why don't you keep him as opposed to getting a Garnacho? And also, if he's tied to a contract, you don't have to sell him. All you need to do is to send him out on loan to Leipzig if there's room there, to a Dortmund if there's room there, and he can actually go there and thrive. As opposed to saying you have to sell him, because it will be a fail. It will be, for me, what people don't get is it's going to be a failure or a regret on two folds. It's not just because, oh, he's going to go there and he's going to be good. That's one phase of it. But he's also going to go there, he's going to be good, and he's going to be worth even more. So if you sell him off, because people don't get how the German Bundesliga is played. It's played with furious pace, and the ball always zips in to the attacking players very quickly. And when that happens, you get players having time on the ball to run out their man with the high line that those teams like to play. So with his pace, he will get in for days. His skill and trickery, he will get past defenders for fun. He will score lots of goals, create lots of goals, and he'll be worth 60, 65, 70 million. I know this might seem like a stretch, but Bino Gittins, how long ago did he leave Man City's academy to go to Dortmund? How long ago? And see how much Chelsea has had to, cough up for him. That's about 60 odd million, so 62, 65 million pounds for Bino Gittins, who is just 20. I think it's a year or two older than Tyreek George. So for me, I think Chelsea shouldn't be in too much of a haste to let him go. Shouldn't be in too much of a haste to let Tyreek George go. Another outgoing, and this is still Chelsea transfer that I'll talk about, is Carney Chukwuemeka. Carney Chukwuemeka right now, there's links to him leaving Chelsea and going to Dortmund. There are discussions right now between Chelsea and Dortmund for, his services. And for me, it's a player that mixed feelings really, because he was meant to be the young guy that comes in and takes the midfield by the scruff of the neck. But for some reason, that hasn't really worked out. That hasn't really worked out. He got that in and was just beset with injuries under Pochettino. And then when Enzo Maresca came, was kind of like a pharaoh that knows no Joseph. So he's coming, and for whatever reason, coaches have their reasons why they don't fancy players. And Enzo Maresca, didn't fancy Carney Chukwuemeka, fair play. He only plays sparingly in Conference League games. And the way people look at Conference League games, and you as a player, when you see yourself playing in Conference League games, you just know, this coach doesn't really fancy me, especially when you're just playing those Conference League games. And now he's gone on loan to Dortmund, and he's loved it there so far. The coach, Kovac, loves him there. Some of the fans have embraced him, so he's open to move. So this is what Fabrizio Romano tweeted some time ago about the move. So he says, understand Borussia Dortmund have reactivated their talks with Chelsea for Carney Chukwuemeka. Negotiations ongoing between the clubs to find a solution as Carney wants to move. Chelsea insists on a permanent transfer. Now, for me, That's another thing with respect to German clubs and Italian clubs. Sometimes they're a bit too thrifty with their money. If you want a player, go ahead, pay his value, and own the player. Because right now, I don't think it serves Chelsea. It's in Chelsea's best interest to have him out just on loan and still, of course, still be paying some part of his wages. So I think what's fair is to let him go. Let him go. And what's fair is for Dortmund to stomp up maybe 30, 35, 40 million pounds and get him on your books, because he is another player. The way he plays the game, the way he feels the game, he'll be worth more. And what more? Believe me, he'll be worth more. So, and that's why, from a Chelsea perspective, if Chelsea are thinking of another multi-club, another club to be in their multi-club network, probably should be thinking of a club in Germany, in the Bundesliga, because of how the game is appreciated and played there. So fair play, Carney Chukwuemeka. Hopefully everything works out right and he moves. Then another bit of transfer news. I know we're sticking with Chelsea still. So Dewsbury Hall, we've got it. Here we go for Dewsbury Hall. He's off to yeah. So for Dewsbury Hall, he's off to Everton. And then that makes me ask, where would he even fit in at Everton? Everton fans, if you're watching this stream, where do you think Dewsbury Hall will fit in? We've got it. Here we go from Fabio Romano. So fair play on that one. And so does he play behind Ndiaye? Because I know Ndiaye is sort of the 10 for Everton. So where does he fit in my opinion? I think that's a strange one, but I still think it's a good move for Everton. And I think the way Everton has been moving this transfer window, I wonder if David Moyes is really behind those transfers 100%, or is more of a club sort of move, because the move just sort of reminds me more of the kind of moves that were made under Sean Dyche. And you just know that Sean Dyche wasn't one of those managers that goes for the super exciting players. So for me, it raises that question as to really, 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 is it a move for that David Moyes is doing, or Everton are more or less copying the Chelsea and Brighton blueprint, where you sign a player you think has value, he's at the club, irrespective of the manager, he would remain at the club. So maybe is it one of those? Maybe it's one of those. I don't know. Maybe it's one of those. I don't know. So this one we got here from Fabrizio Romano. I know he tweeted this a while ago. So exclusive. Keenan Dewsbury Hall to Everton. Here we go. Permanent deal agreed with Chelsea player side. With Chelsea and the player side. Understand the fee is worth £25 million fixed, plus add-ons up to 28 and 29 million pounds total package. Keenan Dewsbury Hall, Ugochukwu, Chukwuemeka are all leaving Chelsea on permanent deals. So fair play, fair play. Now, the one thing I would say about Keenan Dewsbury Hall is it's a bit of a strange one and a bit funny as well, because he was meant to be that guy that's coming in, to be the Maresca whisperer, something of the sort. But it hasn't turned out to be that way. He didn't get that much game time, anyway. So he's come on, but good for him. He's got 2 titles, 2 trophies. So even if he retires today, he has two trophies to his name. He's come on. He's got the UEFA Conference League title. He's got the Club World Cup title as well. So he wouldn't say his time at Chelsea wasn't profitable. At least it was productive for him. Had a successful stint. Help was unfortunately has not gotten is not allowed to play in the Champions League because he's leaving the club, obviously. But overall, he would say it's a decent move. And even if he had gone to Brighton, because Brighton were the club interested in his signature, he wouldn't have won the trophies that he's won. So fair play for him. I know a lot of people are going on about, Chelsea did not have to sell players, or they like selling players. Come on, these clubs will only sign players they need. Everton are not signing Dewsbury Hall to help out Chelsea. They're signing him because he's a player that they need, and that's fair. And that's fair play to Chelsea. Fair play to their model that I've not always been a fan of. Even at this point, I'm not 100% a fan of sort of Chelsea's model, but for now it seems to be working, and they have to get names cleared off, cleared off the list. So fair play, fair play, fair play. So that is another one out the window. Out the window. Now, I want to talk about some players that I think must have mentioned them in previous streams, but I think everyone, mainly Premier League clubs, are sleeping on these players. Now, for one, we've got Tolaro Kodare is one player I feel the footballing world is sleeping on, in my mind, because you know Newcastle United are all in for Sesko. Manchester United are all in on Sesko as well. According to certain reports, we've heard that Manchester United are now set to make their own official bid for the player after Newcastle United have made theirs. And right now, I think the CEOs, the sporting directors, and maybe Jurgen Klopp, because he's head of the football aspect of the Red Bull Group, they're all enjoying themselves right now, seeing Newcastle United and Manchester United go back and forth and unwittingly increasing the value of the player. Because for me, looking at Sesko should be a 60 million pound player maximum at the most. Looking at what he's done in the game, 14 goals last season, and the previous season was similar. So he hasn't really broken into this past season, smashing goals in right, left, and center. So he's still a player that can develop, but not of 80 million euros for Sesko. No, I don't quite see it. But Newcastle United, Manchester United want to go all out and sign him. So that's the value. So for me, that brings me to the point of trying to make, which is I think football, Premier League clubs are sleeping on some players that they could have got for bargain deals. I'm telling you, Tolaru Kodari, 6'6", can run the channels, can do everything Sesko can do, has scored more goals than Sesko this past season, and would have cost a fraction of what they have spent. And to be fair, this is not just a Newcastle United thing. There's West Ham looking for a striker, and who have they gone to sign? Callum Wilson. And of course, Ferguson, Evian Ferguson hasn't gone, he's now with Roma yet. And now, who have they signed? They've gone to sign Callum Wilson in addition to Fulcrum. So it's like a lot of these clubs are flipping on top players. Otele, another player that has been on fire since last season and has picked up where he left off last season in the Swiss League. So he's another player I think a lot of clubs are just sleeping on, in my humble opinion. And another one, should I go on? Rafi Durushimi is another player. I just wonder, like, why do Premier League clubs always think expensive is better? I want to know. Why do they always think that if we don't spend 90 million euros or 90 million pounds on a player or 70 million euros on a player, that player is not good enough? I don't quite get it. Maybe it's the Nigerian in me, talking about this player, but I think there are other players as well that can add great value, to clubs. Especially, okay, look at Fulham, for instance. Okay, have a look at Fulham. They have Muniz and they have what's the guy with the head injury, the Mexican striker. Can't quite remember his name now. Pardon me. So they've got those two strikers, but Jimenez is coming towards the end of his time. His career is heading toward, I think, in his 30s now. So you should be looking for strikers that are able to come in now, fit in, and have a go. And even Chelsea, I think they're slipping on some players, as well. So let me know those opinions on these players, and I'll be back in a bit. Hello, sorry, fine, I'm back. Thank you for sticking with me. So, more transfer news to talk about, so more outgoings, and thankfully not from Chelsea, but outgoings from Arsenal. So, Fabio Vieira, who, according to David Ornstein about 70 minutes ago, will be leaving Arsenal. So, will be leaving Arsenal. So, fair play, fair play. I don't know what Arsenal fans think of the player, but finally, at least you have him off your books. That's like Chelsea have been getting players off the books. For sometimes, I think players do not, as in fans do not understand the importance of getting players off your books, before going on to sign, players. So Fabio Vieira off the books, exclusive Stuttgart pursuing deal to sign Fabio Vieira from Arsenal. 25-year-old attacking midfielder spent last season on loan at Porto. Approach relates to permanent move, no agreement yet, but talks with Arsenal continue for Portuguese players. So I think overall that's a good one because I don't think he has been that great for Arsenal. I don't think he was that great for Arsenal, but on loan at Porto, probably not enough for Stuttgart to get him, to get him in the building. So fair play, Arsenal fans. How you feeling about it? I'm sure you're not too bothered about him leaving on a permanent transfer. So fair play, fair play. Um, Fair play all round. Over there. Yeah, so he leaves, Fabio Vera leaves, just like Chelsea have got Lesley Ugochukwu has left Chelsea, and I also think Ruben Diaz has signed a new deal with Manchester City, if I'm not mistaken, because I saw that as well. That's something David Ornstein had put out there. He has signed a new deal at Manchester United. So, how are you guys feeling about it? How are you feeling about this one? For me, Ruben Diaz, I know for some reason he's highly, highly rated, but he's not a defender that really puts fear in anybody, I think. He is good 1v1 defending, but one thing we know is he lacks pace, considerable pace. But overall, I'm sure Man City are happy that they've got him signed up 28 years old. And I think it's good to have that stability in the building, but fair play Manchester City, you've got the deal done, or rather, you've got the contract extended. So fair play. And then, of course, more deals to talk about. Now, for this one, before I bring it up on screen, it's a bit of a strange one to me, for me, and I want to ask this question: does it feel like this to anyone else that some of the deals being done by Manchester being done, sorry, by Everton seems strange. They don't quite feel like the David Moyes deal, So, like I said earlier in the video, they've gone on to sign Keenan Jusby from Chelsea. Now, Ndaye is there as well. Even when Sean Dyke was there, the deals just felt like, not quite the sort of players that Sean Dyke would go on to sign. And then as well now we're seeing Everton being linked to a top player, a player that at some point was at Chelsea's academy, and it was linked to Chelsea signing him again even before Cole Palmer was signed. But that deal for some reason didn't pull through, and now he's linked to Everton. And that player is Tyler Diblin. So when I look at Tyler Diblin, he's not the kind of player that really, when you look at him, you think of David Moyes' system. For me, it just feels like the club are doing the sort of Chelsea 2.0, where you sign a player with value, with ability, obviously, and he stays at the club irrespective of the coach. That's what it feels like to me that Everton are trying to do. So fair play to David Moyes if he suddenly, in his old age has changed how he wants to play. He now wants to play more attractive, attack-minded football. Fair play if that indeed happens. So Everton make improved offer for Southampton for Tyler Diblin. Latest EFC proposal was in region of 40 million pounds, including add-ons. Saints expected to reject. Want higher fee for 19-year-old England youth international who is keen on the return to the Premier League. So looking at Tyler Diblin now, Obviously, everyone wants to be at the Premier League or at least playing the first division, whichever country's league you're playing in. So fair play to that one. But I think um, Southampton would charge a lot of money, would place a huge value on the player and demand a lot more than 40. Because it would be funny because I think it was the last season at some point last season, that the season that just ended, or even the season prior, they had put a crazy amount on him, about £100 million. £100 million valuation, which is just madness to me, in my opinion. Now, for them to less than how many months ago to now, how many months later to now let him go for, you know, a fraction of what they're placed, £40 million, which I think, if I'm honest, is a fair value for the player. Because what has he done really? Was it 2 goals or 3 goals he scored? I don't know if he's going to come up with up to 5 assists this past season, but all of a sudden he's valued at um, 60, maybe £100 million that Southampton have placed on him. And I don't know, because the way it feels right now, you can't rule Clear Lake and Blue Co out of anything. You can't say they're above anything, because they could go on to put a cheeky bid in for kind of dividend and signing, because we all know Paul Winstanley and Lawrence Stewart, they love young players. Doesn't matter whether they can whether they suit what the coach wants to do. They just go on and sign the player and bring him in. So, but for now, Everton seems to be frontliners for the signing. But for me, I have to ask this. I've asked it before. So, Do you think David Moyes is actually behind these signings? Do you think he's actually changed, or at least open to changing his style of play? Because Tyler Diblin doesn't strike me as a player that will be tracking, that will do so much tracking back. Probably he can do the pressing. He can be very good on the ball, look good on the ball. Would have has skills and decent pace on him. But it doesn't seem to me, the couple of times I've seen him play for Southampton, it doesn't seem to me like someone that would do the dirty work, drop back, tackle, track his man. And I think that's what Everton at this point is all about. Even in that year, that's a very skillful, very, very good player, in my opinion. He does the tracking back. And Tyler Diblin, I don't quite see him as that kind of player. Everton, they've also signed Adem Aznou, the Moroccan player was on the books of Bayern Munich not too long ago. So, and he's a very attack-minded fullback. So when I look at it, I think are these signings David Moyes sort of signings? Because it's all well and good, because we're football fans. We all like, bring, give me that player, give me that player, give me that player. But sometimes you have to look at it, because at the end of the day, the manager is the one that would have to use this player, that would have to play these players. And we saw it from a Chelsea perspective. We saw this where you had what's his face, Maresca, you had Nkunku, and he just didn't know where to use Nkunku. He didn't see Nkunku playing in his favorite position, which was behind the striker. He didn't see him playing there. He just dropped him on the bench. Now Nkunku has to leave. So it's very important that the club sign players for the club, for the manager, for the club that the manager does actually like, does actually rate, and more importantly, does know what to do with them. As I look at Tyler Diblin, he's good on the ball, but I don't think when it comes to putting in a defensive shift that at this point David Moyes is all about with Everton, I don't think he does that very well. So maybe he also comes there and adapts. He's a young kid anyway. He's 19 years old. So come back, he could come to Everton and adapt to what David Moyes tells him, and becomes that player that becomes a dual threat, puts in the defensive shift, and be very creative going forward. So if you're new, we've talked about several transfer topics. We talked about Lesley Ugochukwu leaving Chelsea on a permanent deal, heading to Burnley. So he would be, of course, meeting up with Armando Broja, another player that left Chelsea, to Burnley as well. And for some reason, the offer for Armando Broja is all shrouded in mystery. No one seems to know what the price is. Some people say it's £20 million, some people say it's north of £25 million. No one quite knows what the transfer fee is. So Lesley Ugochukwu goes on to join Burnley on a permanent transfer, and I've said I like that because right now Chelsea's midfield is so. But I say stacked. I don't think stacked is the word. I think it's crowded right now because you've got Esugo just joined the season. You've got this transfer window joined Caicedo. You have Caicedo there. You have Andre Santos. You have Enzo Fernandez. So that central midfield, central defensive midfield is just crowded right now. You have 4 players for 2 spots. And with Lesley Ugochukwu, that would have been 5 players for 2 slots, fighting for 2 positions. So he's got to go. Lesley Ugochukwu, fair play. Hope he goes there, gets game time. A bit sad from a Chelsea fan perspective because I know he is a very good player, but he's got to go. Fair play. Also, we talked about Kenan Hall leaving Chelsea. He too had to go because when you look at Kenan Hall, you wonder where would he actually fit in? Maybe the Enzo Fernandez type of role, but Enzo Fernandez isn't getting dropped anytime soon. And like I said, that's 4 slots there. You don't want to be the 5th wheel. You don't want to be the 5th person just hanging there. So, and funny enough, he was meant to be that guy that would be the Enzo Maresca sort of man within the team, the coach within the team, but he didn't even get to play that much. So fair play, he's leaving. A lot of rival fans have been saying, "Oh, Chelsea, you've been selling a lot of players, or you've made a loss on this player." Fair play. Sometimes that's how it happens. Sometimes in football, you have to, not just in football, in life in general. You look at something, you count your losses, you say, "Okay, I'm not going to get I'm not going to get profit from this, but in a couple of months, I'll stop running at a loss." Because if you have a player that isn't playing, one, just sits on the bench and takes home maybe, I don't know, 80, 100,000 pounds a week, you're running at a loss because that player isn't giving you any sort of return on your investment. So at some point, you let him go, and then you have his wages off your wage bill. That's the mistake Manchester United made with Jadon Sancho. They wanted to prove to him that we are Manchester United. We're not going to let you go. We can let. At some point, you have to think you're paying him that much money, and he's not adding any value to your team. So why not let him go? So, and even within Buemo thing, Brentford had said 60 odd million pounds. Manchester United decided to lowball them, and what happened? Manchester United they ended up paying 71 million pounds overall for the total package. So 65 million pounds guaranteed and 6 million pounds in add-ons. So, well, maybe from a Manchester United perspective, maybe those add-ons are difficult to achieve. Maybe saying Manchester United win the Champions League and the Premier League this season, but I'm not sure Brentford are that dumb to accept such impossible add-ons because it will be the miracle of the century, for Manchester United to win the Premier League this season. That's not going to happen, and they're not even the Champions League. So that's it. So a lot of outgoings. We talked about Fabio Vieira possibly leaving Chelsea leaving Arsenal permanently to move to Stuttgart. It was a known at Porto. Apparently had a fairly decent run there, back at his hometown. So now he heads off to Stuttgart. Negotiations are still ongoing between Arsenal. I'm sure Arsenal fans will be happy to have him off their books. Maybe not even every Arsenal fan even remembers that he is even an Arsenal fan. Because as a Chelsea fan, there's some players where I just think about, is this player even still a Chelsea player? When you think about it, is this player still a Chelsea player? And so, a fair play. Now, talking about Carney Chukwuemeka as well, possibly leaving Chelsea to Dortmund on a permanent transfer. Dortmund wanting to trigger, sort of reactivated discussion at first. They wanted a loan, but Chelsea are more insistent or would prefer a permanent sale. And you quite understand why, they would want a permanent sale because one, he's not going to play. You've seen from Enzo Maresca, he's not going to play. And the Champions League, whether rightly or wrongly, is viewed as a very important competition. As a very important competition, as opposed to the Europa Conference League that was seen as, okay, we could play academy players there, we could play a couple of players there. And that meant that you could play players who are on the fringe in the Conference League games and keep them kind of happy-ish. But when you have the Champions League that is viewed as a serious competition, obviously, like the Premier League, if you don't trust the player, I know I value Carney Chukwuemeka. I see how good he is and how good he can be. But if the coach doesn't fancy him, there's no point having him around. So because games like Champions League, the player you don't trust in the Premier League, you're certainly not going to play him in the Champions League. So I think it's fair play for Carney Chukwuemeka to go on, a permanent transfer because you don't want to be paying the wages for a player while he's at another club. So I get why Chelsea want him off their books, and why Enzo Maresca is best for Carney Chukwuemeka. In fact, for both parties, for Carney Chukwuemeka to be off to Dortmund. And from a Nigerian perspective, I want the uppity nature of English football fans to come in seriously. Seriously, this is from a selfish perspective. I want him to go to Dortmund, and I want Premier League fans, I want English fans of the English national team. I want the selectors in England to say, "Oh no, he's gone to Dortmund, he's gone to Germany. He's not that good anymore. If he was good, he would have been in the Premier League," and that would then allow maybe the Nigerian Football Federation to make their move. But then again, are they even serious? Are they even serious to get moves like this done? So let me know your opinions. You're Chelsea fan about Carney Chukwuemeka, leaving Chelsea. Leaving Chelsea, yes, exactly, to go on a permanent transfer to Dortmund. And another player that could possibly be leaving Chelsea is Tyreek George. Now, Tyreek George, exciting player. He had his breakthrough season at Chelsea, this past season. Scored a goal, I think a couple of goals in the Conference League, scored a goal, in the league against Fulham, scored a goal in the Club World Cup. And each time he's come on, he's been impressive. Each time he's come on, he has not looked like he doesn't belong. Because one of the main things I think that a coach looks for in an academy graduate is when you've dominated the academy scene and you're not promoted to the first team, you're giving your debut, say in the Premier League or in the FA Cup, you look like you are meant to be there. You look like you are a mortgage paying adult on the pitch. So he looked like he belonged there, but with Garnacho coming in, I just can't quite understand why Chelsea are so insistent on signing him. But fair play, you have Gittins already, Garnacho coming there. Would he really want to be the third wheel? And like I've said previously, Nico Jackson could be another left wing option. So would he really want to compete with three people that the club have already placed ahead of him, placed above him? For me, that's not something that I would be wanting to do. So Chelsea fans, let me know what you think about these bits of news. And then I've talked about certain players that I think, in my opinion, various clubs are just sleeping on, seriously sleeping on. And I've talked about Philippe Otele being on serious form for Basel. I know that some people will raise their noses up at Otele, but he's been on serious form for the Swiss side, Swiss giant Basel. Tudor Kodare was on serious form last season for Genk. Now going into his new season, I think he's someone that is built for the Premier League. Size, speed, goal scoring ability, hold up play. I think he's someone that is built for the league as well. And there's someone who, though he's eligible to play for Nigeria, he is eligible for Belgium as well. And that's Nouadhiji Sternberg. Look at the player. Say, why aren't clubs looking at this player? I don't quite understand it. Now, people have said, at least the reports are, Garnacho and Xavi will be signed jointly. That is not some sort of thing where if Chelsea signs Xavi, they're not going to sign they're not going to sign Garnacho. And that's fair play. Fair play, even if I don't think Garnacho is a player to sign. I do think that I quite get understanding why you would, sign both of them because they play different wings. They play different roles. And there have been people who have been trying to go on about saying Xavi is a left winger. I'm like, where did you get that nonsense from? He's not. People point to his pace to say, "Oh, he's pacey." I don't see how pace equates to winger. I don't see how pace means you're a winger. I don't quite see it. He's quick, but his quickness is through the middle. So Sky Sports Premier League says Chelsea are pushing to sign both Javi Simons and Alejandro Garnacho before the transfer window closes, with talks ongoing and strong relations between all clubs. So and Garnacho, obviously, that's why Tyron George is leaving. Garnacho obviously would be a left wing option alongside Bino Gittins, and I think Bino Gittins is going to be the outright number one option because look at how much he was signed for, and he's just been signed. So what people understand, the more money spent on the player, the more pressure to play a player. So Javi Simons and Garnacho to be signed. Let me know how you feel about either of these signings. So one positive from this is, at least from my perspective, is that Javi Simons is going to play centrally. So for me, that's happy days, because I don't want to hear what's his face now, Enzo Maresca, you know, doing a press conference saying, from day one, I've seen Javi Simons as a left winger. That would just make me throw away the season because that would be one more player you play in out of position, like Rick James playing out of position. So I see Javi Simons for me as a Cole Palmer competition or pairing partner or something. And each time you say Cole Palmer competition, people tend to lose their minds. I don't know why. I'm not saying he's better than Cole Palmer. I'm not saying he's coming to the club to bench Cole Palmer. What I'm saying is, I'm saying he is a good player of a good enough quality where he can compete with Cole Palmer. And believe me, every player needs competition. If you want to have a team that is top level, that is competing for on all fronts, you need to have two players at least for each role, for each position: striker, winger, midfielder, goalkeeper. But we don't even have that at Chelsea. So that's what you should be, looking at. What you should be looking at. So for me, I think Javi Simons is confirmed he's going to play centrally, and I'm happy with that. So fair play. Fair play. So Sesko, Manchester United to make their bid for Sesko. Let's see, it's just crazy. Can someone explain to me how Sesko is worth this 80 craziness? 80 million pounds or 80 million euros, is it? It's just crazy. Crazy. Meanwhile, Sesko is busy dragging his feet. Everyone is waiting for Sesko. This is just crazy. How did Sesko become this guy that everyone is just falling over? How did it happen? I'm trying to figure it out. How it's happened that Sesko is this guy that Manchester United and Newcastle United are just falling over themselves for. I don't quite understand. I don't quite understand it. So you see, according to Ben Jacobs, says um, Newcastle want an answer from Benjamin Sesko within 48 hours. Newcastle United Football Club now confident they can reach an agreement with Leipzig, but have no plans to allow the saga to drag on to the latter part of the week without clarity. Manchester United still in the race. Leipzig awaiting the sort of personal terms agreement with the player. So I ask again, what is it about Sesko that everyone just seems to overly rate him? If I'm Manchester United, I tell you I'm signing Watkins. I'm signing Watkins. I know I don't like Manchester United, so whatever I say about Manchester United, people always see that I have an ulterior motive or something. But seriously, when you're talking about players that will be valued for money, I think Oli Watkins would be absolutely bang for your buck. He's Premier League ready. He scores goals. He's got pace to run it behind. And people have come up with this funny sort of positions. Like, what happens in 3 years' time when he loses his pace? You're not signing Watkins to be your lead striker for the next 5 years. You're signing Watkins to be, your striker for the next 1-2 years, and maybe that would even help your Rasmus Højlund. He can take his time, be that striker that comes off the bench, 20 minutes to go, 15 minutes to go, and he can develop that way and become a good striker, a serviceable striker. So for me, Oli Watkins for me is a no-brainer. He's someone that has goals in the Premier League. He isn't coming to the Premier League from a different league where you say he has to acclimatize to the league. He needs to take all this time. I don't get why. Or just maybe I just look at Sesko and just wonder why is everyone going so crazy? 80 million pounds, 80 million euros. So that's like 70 million pounds on Sesko. Transfer window has gone mad. Of course, you get Ketike, I recognize his skills and ability and potential, but 95 million euros for Ekitike, that's madness. That's absolute madness. Then, not to mention the 120 plus million pounds for, Isak. That's what Liverpool have to pay. They've made the 120 million pounds. It has been rejected by Newcastle United, and maybe they're going again. And if they're going again, then they're not going to do like Arsenal. That funny bid Arsenal made for Higuain. Went and made an additional 1 million or 2 million, something odd like that, something crazy like that. So it's going to be 120, 130 million pounds for Isak. Don't get me wrong, Isak is a top level player. He's elite, not world class yet. He is an elite player, not world class yet. So he's just a rung below being world class. But he's been consistent the past 2 seasons. So going to Liverpool, more chances to be created. Your Salahs and your and all that. So that'll be fair play to him. So talking about some transfers I have to talk about. Ndidi heading to Besiktas. So fair play to him. Ndidi heads over to Besiktas. So according to reports, the transfer has been accepted. They initially made an offer for £7 million or thereabout, and that was rejected. Now they made an offer for £8.5 million, and that offer indeed now has been accepted. So fair play. So fair play for him. Fair play to Besiktas. I hope he goes there and plays well. At some point, Ndidi was linked to Manchester United, and for me, I felt like Manchester United, the way Amorim wants to play, I don't think it will suit him, because I know some people say, "Oh, let him go to Manchester United. It's a big club." What I don't want is any player, and more so a Nigerian player, becoming a scapegoat for a manager. That's not what I want, because he doesn't have the legs anymore to go 2 ways in that midfield. So I think what will suit Wilfred Ndidi right now is, go sitting in front of the back four and just mopping up, breathing danger, mopping up, winning the ball, and letting the ball go. So I think that would work a treat for Wilfred Ndidi, in my opinion. So Wilfred Ndidi going to Besiktas as fine for him. And like I said about Victor Osimhen and Ademola Lookman, want these players to be in the right frame of mind, coming into the AFCON that will be taking place December this year into January of next year, and the World Cup qualifiers as well. They're coming to the World Cup qualifiers with their head set up right, their club future properly sorted out. That's what I'm hoping, I'm praying for. So good news that he is gone. Victor Osimhen has already gone to Galatasaray. Everything seems set for him. And then Carney Chukwuemeka, can he be convinced to play for Nigeria? I'm sure he can. He's heading over to Dortmund. At least that's how it seems, because they are the only side right now interested in him and in this direct discussions with Chelsea. So let's see how that all shakes down, and hopefully that all works out well for him. Lesley Ugochukwu, another player eligible to play for Nigeria. He's heading to Burnley. Fair play. We've got to here we go with that. So that's fantastic. So he goes there. He as the main man, he gets to play there, and the way he plays the game, his feel for the game. When you see a player that knows how to play football, that has a good feel for the game, you look at them once, Lesley Ugochukwu is one of those. So you go to Burnley, and I'm sure he's going to be worth even more. I'm telling you, he's going to be worth even more when he goes to Burnley. I hope, for Chelsea's sake, they have some sort of clause, maybe a sell-on clause, because he possibly could be going for 40, 45 million pounds, or even a bit more, maybe in less than 12 to 16 months. So, fair play to him in that, in that regard. And Ademola Lookman, I think I have more to say about Ademola Lookman, because in the video earlier on today, there's something I said about Ademola Lookman putting out his transfer request, talking about his transfer request and all that, which I think fair play for him to put out that transfer request. But one thing I've said about players is, whatever thing you want, whether it's you need, a monk to wash your head before you wake up, you need to have that in your contract. Whatever you need, whether you need chicken soup made for you every morning, you need to have that in your contract, because the Atalanta CEO has come up to say something else. The Atalanta CEO has come up to say something else, giving additional, context to everything. And now we're in a state of he said. Who do we believe? Who don't we believe? So let me share this and let's go together and read through this and let's see what he said. And I'll give my own reaction and 2 cents, about it. So, so look at what the Atalanta CEO said. Atalanta CEO Luca Pescasi, 1 year ago, in response to a 2 million euros offer from PSG, Ademola Lookman asked us to be transferred. Atalanta, being a credible club, had promised to consider transferring the player, in this transfer window based on 2 conditions requested by him. Firstly, to join a top European club, and that in Italy would never be seen wearing a jersey other than Atalanta's. Today, the situation is quite different, but as always, it is the Atalanta club that decides the timing and value of its players. So that's why I said, whatever you want, whether you want to leave the club, riding on a donkey or riding on a chariot of fire, right? You have to have it in the contract. There's nothing like a gentleman's agreement. You shake your hand on it and say, oh yeah, this is what we agree. No, because it's never enforceable when it comes to money. So if you take what the CEO of Atlanta is saying is, the agreement was he will not be sold to a team out. He will only be sold to a team outside the Italian Serie A. So that would ordinarily take Inter Milan, a club like Inter Milan, off the table. So he will not be sold to a team out within Italy, in the Italian Serie A. So for Italy, he will never wear another jersey that is not Atalanta's jersey. Then he goes on to say in this, and he said it was on the request of Ademola Lookman. And then he goes on to say that, all right, the situation is different, but now it is always the club that will determine the value of the player. So whatever 43 million euros that you may think we've discussed about in any sort of gentleman's agreement doesn't really count. We as the club will determine how much you will be valued and how much we're going to sell you for. So you see, whatever thing you want as a player, it must be in your contract, brother. It must be in your contract. It's not all about how much they're going to pay me per week. No. How much transfer fee is, how much my sign-on bonus is. There are other clauses that you need to look at as a player. And this is an advice to Nigerian players out there. There are other things you need to look for. You need to look at those details. I have a release clause. What is the release clause? How can that release clause be triggered? If you think that's too much for you, make sure you have a lawyer present. Make sure you have a lawyer you have trust with, that can work with you, that can read through, the provisions of the contract. Or else you could be in a spot of bother like this. He wants to leave, but he cannot leave. And he's one of the most important players for Nigeria, and that's so annoying for me. He's one of the most important players. After Victor Osimhen, the next guy is Ademola Lookman. So he's one player I don't want his brain to be all fuzzed up with transfer issues. And it wouldn't blame him if his brain, is in the clouds because his transfer his transfer hasn't been sorted because that's his livelihood. We as fans, we love clubs, we support various clubs, but players, this is their livelihood. That's how they feed their family, how they live. So if this is not sorted out, he's not going to play very well, in the World Cup qualifiers and in the AFCON as well. So this needs to be sorted out. It's an unfortunate situation for me. It's an unfortunate situation in my opinion, because if you just had a lawyer with you, if you just had this lawyer with you, sit down when the contract is being drafted, you have everything you want in the contract. Everything you want should be in the contract. A gentleman's agreement is no agreement. It's not. It's just, I think I would do this for you. I could give you this red hat I'm wearing, but no contract binds it. So you can come the next minute and say, you said you give me your red hat. I said, no, I can't give you this red hat because I don't think I even said that. And you say, but no, it has to be in a contract. So sad for Ademola Lookman. And a lot of people that were talking about Victor Osimhen. So Victor Osimhen is a bad guy. He makes so much attitude problem. It's not about attitude problem. Get your agents, get your lawyers, get your brand managers, your marketing people, whatever, all those boring stuff that we as football fans don't even get to think about. Get those people to make sure everything is in alignment for you. Else you'll be in this sort of situation. So let me know just opinions on the various topics we talked about today. I know we talked about transfer concerning Nigerian players, transfer concerning players who are not Nigerians, and players that feel like the entirety of Europe right now are sleeping on. Another one I have to mention before this video ends, for the stream ends, is Shola Ogundona. Shola Ogundona is a player that people are sleeping on. People are sleeping on this player. And know what's funny? He plays in the Brazilian league. And when I tell people that the narrative you create around players is so important. He plays in the Brazilian league and no one seems to know about him. Now, I don't blame Brazilian press for not hyping him up. That's not their job to do. If you're a Nigerian, you create content, football content, it's your job. You're a sports journalist in Nigeria, do your job, do your due diligence. So, fair play at this point, we've come to the end of this video. Thanks so much for everyone who's watched this video from start to finish. It's been amazing having you here. If you're new, please subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so you're notified each time a video goes live on the channel or a pre-recorded video is posted. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time on the channel. Stay well.